This is an Arkansas Department of Education presentation created to share with you information about shortage areas in Arkansas's educator workforce. Academic shortage areas are established each year at the request of the U.S. Department of Education in order for students in teacher preparation programs to have access to academic financial incentives. Teachers who prepare for and license in identified shortage areas may be eligible for loan forgiveness via a variety of federal loan programs such as Stafford loans, Perkins loans, or Teach Grants. Each December, the Arkansas Department of Education identifies these areas in order to address teacher shortages in the schools and to assist with recruitment and retention efforts. In December of 2015, the ADE determined that the following ought to be considered shortage areas for the 2016-2017 school year: agriculture, art, computer science, family and consumer science, French, library media, mathematics, physical science, in this case chemistry and physics, Spanish, and special education. To determine these shortage areas, the ADE uses a supply and demand formula. The supply is arrived at by examining the numbers of students in educator preparation programs, those who are preparing for licenses, and the numbers of licenses issued to educators for the first time. The demand, or the need for educators, is determined by examining the numbers of classes being taught by long-term substitutes, the numbers of classes being taught by teachers on waivers, and the retirement or potential retirement of teachers in each license area. As will be described later in this presentation, this last factor is based on teachers' age and the numbers of years in the teacher retirement system. The definitions for these factors are as follows. Those preparing for the workforce are those who were enrolled in educator preparation programs the previous year. Potential new hires are those who were newly licensed in the license area. In other words, those who received their license for the first time within the last year. Immediate need is established by looking at classes that were taught by substitute teachers and/or those taught by teachers who were teaching out of their license area, those teaching on a waiver or an ALP. And the potential need is established by counting the number of veterans. This is the number of educators who retired the previous year or who are expected to retire in the near future. To further clarify the definition of a veteran, according to the Arkansas Teacher Retirement System, the average age of retirees is 61 years old, and the average number of years that retirees have in the system towards retirement is 23 years. Therefore, a veteran is defined as one who retired in the last year or one whose age plus years towards retirement equals 84 or greater. The supply and demand formula consisted of adding the supply factors or positive factors to a standard, and then subtracting the demand factors or negative factors from that same standard. The standard was set at 100. The number of teachers currently teaching in each area was the basis for these calculations, and each score was calculated as a percentage of the teachers in the area. Positive factors are the numbers preparing for the workforce and the numbers who were newly licensed in the area. These factors were combined and added to the standard of 100. Negative factors, vacancies, waivers, and veterans, were then added together and subtracted from that standard. Any area whose total score was less than 100 indicated that the demand was greater than the supply and therefore was determined to be a shortage area. This Arkansas supply and demand table demonstrates the individual factor scores and the total scores for each of the license areas. The shortage area table exhibits the scores for the shortage areas as determined in December of 2015 for the 2016-2017 school year. As you can see, all of these total scores are less than 100, indicating the need was greater than the supply. Computer science, for which there are no scores, was added to this list since it is a new license area and there are currently very few licensed teachers in this area. This is a graphic representation of the frequency of license areas being officially identified as shortage areas. Clearly, there are some license areas that are consistently named as shortage areas: special education, math, library media, science, gifted and talented, and counseling, to name a few. The table under license areas as shortage areas by school year indicates the school year in which these license areas were identified on the shortage area list. The shortage areas and percentage on waivers table demonstrates that over the last 3 years, special education, library media, and science were the areas that have the greatest percentage of teachers teaching on waivers. This, of course, is critical in that these teachers would all be teaching out of their preparation area. In general, the veteran status of Arkansas's educators gives us an idea of the numbers of teachers who are retiring or who are likely to retire in the near future. We would need to pay particular attention to these areas. On average, approximately 10% of the Arkansas educator workforce fits the veteran definition. Any license area in which more than 10% of its educators are veterans exceeds this state average. These data indicate that 14 of the 25 license areas have greater than 10% veterans. The percentage of newly licensed educators shows us the percentage of educators who are new to the particular license area. In other words, those who in the past year licensed in this area for the first time. If we look at life science, for example, we see that a number equal to 20% of the life science teachers received their license for the first time last year. This could mean that a large portion of life science teachers are young and inexperienced and new to the field, or that there are a large number of students in preparation programs entering the profession to teach in the high-need area of life science. These final slides demonstrate the actual numbers, not percentages, of educators on the supply side and on the demand side. When we look at those preparing for the licenses and those who are newly licensed in the areas, we see that there are about half as many educators available per teaching position in shortage areas as there are in non-shortage areas, a ratio of 1.2 to 1 versus 2.2 to 1. However, when we only look at those in teacher preparation programs, the number of students preparing for licenses in non-shortage areas is equal to 120% of the number of positions available, while the number of students preparing for licenses in shortage areas is equal to only 63% of the number of positions available. These data clearly indicate that there are some areas in which teacher shortages do exist. Be assured that the Arkansas Department of Education is working diligently to address these areas and ensure that the annual demand for educators is met with a sufficient supply of qualified and effective teachers. For more information, you can feel free to contact Ms. Ivy Pfeffer, the Assistant Commissioner for Educator Effectiveness and Licensure, or me, Dr. Frank Servideo, Special Projects Administrator at the Arkansas Department of Education.